It started like any other day. I had just finished a long week at work, exhausted but relieved that the weekend was finally here. I was looking forward to spending some quality time with my wife, catching up and relaxing together. We had talked about our future often, about the things we were building together. Everything felt like it was on track, and I was ready to enjoy our life. But when I came home, everything changed. The house was unusually quiet, and the weight of the silence in the air felt off. She sat me down, her expression unreadable, and immediately I felt like something was wrong. I had no idea what was coming. Then she said it, "I'm leaving." For a moment I didn't understand. I stared at her, unable to process the words that were coming out of her mouth. It was like a punch to the gut. She wasn't just telling me she needed space or was unhappy. She was leaving, and I'm leaving for him, she added, for my boss. My heart sank. The shock of hearing it, hearing that she was leaving me for someone else, took the breath from my lungs. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know how to react. The woman I had trusted, my partner in everything, had betrayed me in the worst way. But it didn't stop there. To make matters worse, she dropped another bombshell. She had taken our investments. The money we had worked so hard to build our future with, the foundation we had laid for a comfortable life together, was gone. I felt the ground shift beneath me. Everything I had worked for, everything I believed in, had just been stolen from me. The life I thought I knew, the one I thought we were building together, was crumbling. And in that moment, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. We had been married for 8 years, and from the outside, everything seemed perfect. We had a comfortable life, everything from a home we loved to a steady income with plans and dreams for the future. We had talked about growing old together, traveling, and enjoying the fruits of our hard work. Our life, at least in my eyes, was built on love, mutual respect, and shared ambitions. We had made sacrifices along the way, sure, but that was what relationships were about, right? Building something meaningful together, side by side, year after year. Our investments were doing well, and we had plans to expand them. We had talked about starting a family and growing old in a way that felt secure and stable. I believed that this was the life we had dreamed of, the life we were building together. In my mind, I had never imagined anything could tear us apart. We had been through so much together, and I had always believed that we would face whatever came our way as a team. I trusted her with everything: my heart, my future, our dreams. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have imagined, was that all of that would come crashing down. The woman I loved, the woman I had built my life with, had fallen for someone else, and not just anyone, her boss. A man I had never even considered could come between us. I thought our bond was unbreakable. But now, standing in the ruins of everything I had worked for, I realized just how wrong I had been. What I thought was a solid foundation was a house of cards. And she had walked away from everything we had, leaving me behind with nothing but the shattered pieces of our life together. In the months leading up to her departure, I started noticing changes in her. At first, they were small, subtle things I tried to brush off as nothing. She seemed distant, less engaged in our conversations, and more focused on her phone. I noticed her spending more and more time at work, staying late, working weekends. I told myself it was just the pressures of her career, that she was just overwhelmed, and I tried to be supportive, thinking it would pass. But as time went on, those small things began to add up. She started keeping her phone closer, always face down, more secretive about who she was talking to, what she was doing. I thought it was odd, but I tried to ignore it. Convincing myself I was just being paranoid. Then I noticed that the emotional distance between us was growing. When we did spend time together, it felt strained, like there was a wall between us that hadn't been there before. Conversations that used to flow easily now felt forced. She was no longer the woman who used to laugh at my jokes, who would talk with me about everything and anything. There was a coldness, a space that I couldn't bridge. I tried to push the thoughts aside, but the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach wouldn't go away. I could sense that something was off, that there was more happening than she was letting on. It wasn't just stress or work. It felt like she was pulling away, like she was slipping through my fingers. I didn't know what was happening, but I could feel at the growing distance, the change in her behavior, the growing sense that I was losing her. I wanted to ignore it, to believe it was just a phase. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I just couldn't bring myself to face the truth of it until it was too late. I walked in that day, hoping for a peaceful evening. I had no idea what was about to unfold, no inkling that everything I thought I knew was about to shatter. The house was quiet, almost too quiet, as if the silence was waiting for something to break. I had been looking forward to talking with her, to reconnecting after what had been a difficult few weeks. But when she sat me down, I knew something was off. Then, she told me. "I'm leaving," she said, her voice calm, almost rehearsed. "I'm leaving for him." For a moment, I didn't understand. For him? My mind struggled to catch up with her words. She wasn't just unhappy. She wasn't just taking a break. She was leaving me, and she was leaving me for her boss, a man I had never imagined could come between us. The floor seemed to drop out beneath me as her words echoed in my ears. But that wasn't all. As if the betrayal of her leaving wasn't enough, she went on to tell me that she had taken our investments or future. The money we had worked so hard for, the nest egg we had built together, was gone.
Wow.
She had drained our accounts, used it to fund her new life, to fuel the affair with the man she was leaving me for. My heart sank. The weight of her betrayal hit me like a ton of bricks. I had trusted her with everything, had shared everything with her. My love, my dreams, my future. And in return, she had taken it all. She had used our life, our hard work, as a stepping stone for her own selfish desires. I stood there, stunned, unable to move. My mind couldn't process the enormity of what she had done. The person I had trusted most in the world, the woman I had built my life with, had destroyed everything. The pain of the betrayal was overwhelming, suffocating. How could she do this? To me, how could she throw away everything we had worked for, everything we had built? Asterisk, the woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted with everything was gone. And in her place was someone I barely recognized, someone who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I was left reeling, walking away from that conversation in complete disbelief. My body moved on autopilot, but my mind was elsewhere, trying to make sense of what had just been said. How could this be happening? How could she, the woman I had built my life with, the woman I had trusted completely, destroy everything so effortlessly? I didn't just lose my partner, I lost my future. The life we had planned, the years of shared dreams, the promise of a future together, all of it had been ripped away in an instant. The foundation of everything I had worked for, everything I thought we had built, was now just rubble. The world felt surreal. I felt like I was moving through it in a fog, disconnected from reality. How could I even begin to move forward from here? How could I make sense of the fact that everything I thought I knew was a lie? The pain was unbearable, but the numbness that followed was almost worse. Asterisk, the betrayal wasn't just about the money. It wasn't just about the investment she had taken or the trust she had broken. It was about everything. The love, the promises, the partnership, everything I had. Given everything I had believed in, was now gone. And I didn't know how to rebuild from that asterisk. I wasn't sure where to turn, what to do next. I wanted to fight back, to scream, to make her understand the damage she had caused. But all I could do was walk away, feeling like a shell of the person I had been just hours before. Silence in the aftermath was deafening, and I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. Asterisk, the numbness settled in deep. It was like I was paralyzed, unable to feel anything except the crushing weight of the loss. The loss of her. The loss of my future. The loss of everything I had believed in. That night I sat in my car, unable to move, as if the weight of the betrayal had physically paralyzed me. The streetlights outside flickered dimly, but I could hardly notice them. My mind was consumed by the overwhelming pain, the crushing realization that everything I had worked for was gone.
It walked
Away with everything, the love, the trust, the investments, the future we were supposed to share, and left me with nothing. I wanted to scream, to punch the steering wheel, to do anything to release the rage, the hurt, the utter disbelief that was consuming me. My chest felt tight, like I was suffocating under the weight of it all, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, paralyzed by the intensity of the pain. The silence of the car felt suffocating. I could hear my own breaths, shallow and unsteady, but it didn't seem like enough to release the storm inside me. I was so angry, so betrayed. Yet there I was silent, motionless, as if the betrayal had stolen my ability to react. I sat there, alone with my thoughts. I thought of everything we had been through together. The late nights, the laughter, the plans we had made for the future. And I thought about how easily she had thrown it all away, how easily she had walked away from a life I'd given everything for, it felt like. I was losing everything I had ever worked for: my dignity, my future, my sense of self. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted, had taken it all. And now I was left with nothing but a hollow ache and the crushing weight of betrayal. The tears came, not in a rush, but quietly, as if they too couldn't escape the suffocating silence. Of that moment, I had never felt so alone. The next morning, I woke up to the harsh reality of what had happened. The morning light streamed through the blinds, but it didn't feel like a new day. It felt like the same nightmare that had started the night before, one that I couldn't wake up from. The bed beside me was empty. I could almost feel the absence of her presence, like a void in the room. I was in an empty house, surrounded by memories of a life I thought we were building together. The photos on the walls, the little things we had picked out together, each item felt like a cruel reminder of the life that no longer existed. It was a home, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. I didn't know where to go from here, or how to even begin picking up the pieces of my shattered life. Everything had changed overnight. I had woken up in the same space, but it no longer felt like mine. The trust, the future, the love I had built my life around her, and now I was left with nothing. There was no plan, no path forward that didn't feel like it was crumbling beneath my feet. I was alone. Completely alone. I had never felt so isolated in my life. The house felt too big now, too empty. The silence echoed louder than I could handle, a constant reminder of everything that had been lost. The weight of betrayal pressed down on my shoulders. Heavy and suffocating, I had always thought that our love, our partnership, would carry me through anything. But now I was left to face the reality that it was all just a lie. I didn't know what my next step was, but I knew that everything I thought I knew had been torn away, leaving me with nothing but the painful truth. I couldn't just walk away from this without confronting her. I couldn't leave things unresolved. Without knowing why she had done this to me, to us. I needed answers, needed to understand how she could betray me so completely. How she could take everything we had worked for and throw it all away. The man I was before I walked into that conversation was gone. All I had left was the need for closure, for some explanation. Even if I couldn't ever truly make sense of it, I arranged to meet her, hoping that maybe, just maybe, there would be some remorse, some hint of guilt, some admission that she had done wrong. But when I saw her, the coldness in her eyes struck me. She didn't look upset or guilty. She didn't seem like someone who had just torn apart a life built on love and trust. She seemed indifferent. Her body language, her lack of warmth, was worse than I could have imagined. I felt like I was talking to a stranger. The woman I had spent years with, the one I had trusted with everything, was no longer in front of me, and when she spoke, it was as if she had already moved on, as if I was just a lingering inconvenience. "It was my decision," she said flatly, her tone cold and final. I needed to move on. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Move on. What about the years we spent together? What about the life we had built? It wasn't just about a decision to leave, it was about everything. But she didn't seem to care. She didn't seem to acknowledge the devastation she had caused. I was left standing there, speechless, as the finality of her words settled in. It wasn't just a breakup. It wasn't just a betrayal of love. It was a complete disregard for everything I had put into this relationship. She had taken it all: my heart, my trust, our future, and cast it aside like it was nothing. There was no empathy, no understanding, just indifference. And in that moment, I knew everything was over. In the weeks that followed, I started focusing on rebuilding my life. The pain was still raw, and some days it felt like I was moving through life in a haze, but I knew I had to start somewhere. I reached out to old friends, the ones I hadn't seen in years because I had been so wrapped up in the relationship. I needed their support, their presence, to remind me of who I was before all of this. The conversations with them, the laughter, and the familiarity slowly helped me rediscover a part of myself that I thought I had lost. I also turned my attention to personal projects, things I had put aside for far too long. I began to focus on hobbies and goals that had once made me feel alive but had been abandoned as the relationship had consumed my time and energy. I started exercising more, focusing on my health and taking small steps to feel like myself again. The process was slow, and it wasn't easy. There were still moments of doubt, days when the memories of her and the life we shared resurfaced and knocked the wind out of me. But with every small victory, whether it was completing a personal project or having a good day without the weight of sadness dragging me down, I felt a little stronger. I began to realize that I didn't need her to be whole. I had been so wrapped up in the idea that our life together defined me. But now, I saw that I was capable of standing on my own. I could rebuild my life, and I could do it on my terms. The future wasn't lost. It was just different now. I had the strength to shape it. Every day felt like a small step forward. Some days it was hard to see progress. But when I looked back, I saw how far I had come. By her betrayal, or by the life we had once planned, I was stronger than I had ever realized. I knew I was capable of building a future that was truly mine. Looking back, I realized that being betrayed was the best thing that could have happened. To me, at first, it felt like the end of everything. It felt like my world had fallen apart, and the pain seemed unbearable. But as time passed, I began to see it differently. The betrayal forced me to confront the reality of who I was and what I had become in the relationship. I had lost sight of myself, of my own needs, my own identity. I had given everything to someone else, expecting them to validate my worth, and I had let that define me. The pain of losing her, of losing the life we had built together, wasn't easy to bear, but it was necessary. It forced me to rebuild, to discover who I truly was without the shadow of someone else's expectations. I'm not defined by the money I lost or the trust I gave away. Those things, though painful, were just chapters in my story, not the whole book. I've learned to trust myself again. I've learned that my worth doesn't depend on anyone else's actions or choices. I am enough, just as I am. I've learned that I should never settle for a life that doesn't honor my worth, that doesn't respect me for who I am. I deserve a life that reflects my values, my strength, and my dreams. I'm stronger than ever. What once felt like a crushing defeat has become a powerful reminder of my resilience. I've come through the storm, and I'm standing on the other side, ready to embrace whatever comes next. My future is mine to shape, and I'm no longer afraid to take control of it. The past is behind me, and I'm moving forward stronger, wiser, and more certain of who I am than ever before. This is my new beginning.